Continuing from the previous episode and discussing this book called Naaga, Discovering the Extraordinary World of Serpent Worship, let's talk about some of the stories, some of the folk tales from different parts of India that talk about serpent worship. In fact, I am in one of those places here in the Himalayas. The serpent worship is quite common, and there are quite a few temples. There are many legends and tales associated with them. There are many deities also, obviously. So I'll start with one of the tales that is from Kullu region from my state, Himachal Pradesh. The book tells us that this particular region, the Kullu Valley, it was historically a great center of Naaga worship. And there is a deity called Baski or Basu, the ancient Nagaraja Vasuki, and he was regarded as the father of the other Nagas scattered over various villages in the region. So the tale is about that. So let me narrate this tale now. Baski Naga, the mighty serpent king, once gazed upon a woman from the Kullu Valley, captivating in her red attire. Smitten, he shed his serpent form, appearing as a handsome man, and swept her away through the air to his celestial realm. In this upper world, they lived together, but Baski Naga gave his bride one strict warning. He said, "You may tend to me as I rest, but never, ever lift the hair upon my head." For some time she obeyed. One day, however, as the Serpent King slept soundly with his head upon her lap, curiosity, or perhaps a longing for her past life, overcame her. Gently, she lifted the hair on his head. In that instant, her vision cleared, and looking down from the heavens, she saw her earthly home, her fields, her village spread out below. A wave of homesickness washed over her, and tears began to fall, splashing onto Baski Naga's face. He awoke instantly. Understanding her longing and perhaps accepting the consequence of her broken promise, he made her his wife then and there. But before returning her to her world, he commanded her, "Whatever offspring are born from our union, you must worship them devoutly." And with those words, she found herself standing once more upon the roof of her own house, without experiencing any passage of time. 9 months passed, and the woman gave birth, not to human children, but to 18 small snakes. Remembering her husband's command, she treated them with reverence. She placed her serpent children carefully into a large earthen pot, the kind called a bhandal in Kullu, making 18 small holes around its side. Through these holes, she patiently fed each snake with milk from her breast, day after day, burning incense in worship. After several months, the woman needed to visit her parents' home. She entrusted the care of her serpent children to her mother-in-law. "Please," she instructed, "continue the worship and feed them while I'm away." The next day, the mother-in-law prepared the incense on a large iron spoon, lighting the coals to create the sacred smoke. As she approached the bandal, the 18 snakes, hearing her footsteps, poked their heads eagerly through the holes. Startled by the sudden appearance of so many serpent heads, The old woman gasped and dropped the spoon. The burning incense and hot coals tumbled directly into the pot. In terror and pain, the young snakes scattered, escaping the pot and fleeing in all directions. It is said that of those 18 serpent children of Baski Naga, 2 fled to the lands of Mandi and Suket, and 2 others found their way into the district of Lahore, forever dispersing the Serpent King's unique lineage across the hills. So that is one story from the mountains, and you can see how sacred they are considered, and there are myths and legends behind these beliefs. But as I discussed previously in the last episode, that it's not just in one part or just a couple of parts, it's pretty much everywhere. These kind of tales, these deities, these practices, you'll find in different parts of India. And it's been an ancient tradition that continues to this day. Now let's travel from north to the south and discuss another story. This story called the story of Ramabhoja's Ashwamedham. Let me narrate this really short one. I'll narrate it from the book. Long ago, in a land that would one day be known as Udupi, there ruled a powerful king named Ramabhoja. His reign was marked by grandeur and the ancient rituals that affirmed a monarch's dominion in the region. Among these was the Ashwamedham, an ancient ceremony through which kings of old asserted their imperial sovereignty. The ritual was as much a test of strength as it was of fate. A horse, accompanied by the king's warriors, was set free to roam for a year, marking the movement of the earth around the sun. Its journey was a silent challenge to neighboring rulers, a gauntlet thrown down without words. Any rival could stake their claim to power by capturing the horse. But if the horse returned unharmed to the king's capital, it was a sign that no force in the known world could contest his supremacy. The king would then complete the ritual with a yajna, a sacrificial fire, and earn the revered title of Chakravarti, the emperor whose authority spanned the known world. During Ramabhoja's Ashwamedham, however, the fates intervened. A cobra, revered as a sacred being in these lands, slithered unnoticed into the ritual fire. It burned in the fire and died a tragic death. This sent waves of fear through the king's court, for in that part of India, a cobra's death was no ordinary event. It was an omen, a portent of the Nagadevta's wrath. Following Parshurama's counsel, Ramabhoja performed the Tulabharam. This term originates from Tula, meaning balance, and Bharam means weight. It's fascinating to note that the Hindi words tolna, to measure, and bhar, weight, stem from these very roots. In Tulabharam, a person is weighed on a large scale against a chosen offering, gold, silver, bananas, or grain. The equivalent weight is then given as a donation, symbolizing penance and devotion. In Ramabhoja's case, a silver idol of a serpent, meticulously coated in pure gold, was crafted to appease the Nagadevtas, the serpent deities who wielded power over the land and its fortunes. So once again in this story that you see how serpents, they are considered really sacred, and they're worshipped, and at the same time you're not supposed to harm them. And that's something I've found in in so many parts of India, even in the Himalayas. um, Although there are a lot of modern people, they are eager to kill the snakes, but when you talk to a lot of people from the ancient cultures, from the tribes, you find that they consider it kind of a kind of a blasphemy to kill these snakes. They don't want to harm them. They try to shoo them away instead. And in a lot of cases, they don't just shoo them away disrespectfully. They bow to them and request them to go away. And then there are, of course, many temples where these serpents they visit on specific days, specific weeks or months, and during which they are offered certain foods or milk, and they are worshipped. And now the final tale, we come in between north and south, and we talk about the Naga Vanshis of Chota Nagpur. So, according to beliefs, the Naga Vanshis of Chota Nagpur, they trace their lineage back to the aftermath of the Mahabharata's Sarpasatra, the infamous snake sacrifice. Let me narrate this tale from the book now. The tale revolves around Pundarika, a Naga prince, who sought to escape the fiery doom planned for his kind during the yajna of King Jana Meja. Refusing to meet his end, Pundarika fled to Kashi, adopting the guise of a human. It is here that this shape-shifting serpent found refuge in the home of a Brahmin, studying under him, hiding his serpentine nature beneath layers of intellect and scholarship. The Brahmin grew fond of Pundarika, whose brilliance in study seemed almost superhuman. As the Brahmin's trust deepened, he eventually offered his daughter Parvati in marriage to this extraordinary disciple. However, beneath the veneer of humanity, Pundarika's true nature could not entirely be hidden. At night, when he slept, his tongue would slip out, forked and serpentine. Poisonous fumes escaped from his breath, leaving his wife Parvati unsettled. She repeatedly asked him the cause of this strange phenomenon, but Pundarika, bound by fear or shame, kept his secret. It wasn't until they embarked on a pilgrimage to the southern Holy Lands that Parvati's persistent questioning bore fruit. As they reached Sutyambe near Pithoria, Parvati, now heavy with child, went into labor. In the throes of pain and perhaps sensing her own mortality, she decided to press her husband once more for the truth. Pundarika, perhaps knowing he could no longer keep his secret, confessed that he was not a human at all, but a serpent in human form. Having revealed his secret, Pundarika disappeared into a nearby lake, his serpentine body slipping beneath the still waters as if he had always belonged to that otherworldly realm. Parvati, left alone, gave birth to their son in the wilderness. In a desperate bid for survival, she gathered firewood and lit a pyre, perhaps hoping to reunite with her husband in death, or maybe simply to end her suffering. She immolated herself in the flames, leaving the newborn child behind. The story takes an even more poignant turn when local woodcutters, seeing the baby beneath the protective hood of a cobra, informed a nearby Brahmin. He took the child home, naming him Fani Mukta Raya, the one crowned with a serpent hood. raising him as his own. Then, in another version of the tale, Fani Mukuta was entrusted to a local chief named Madar Munda, who noticed that the boy's brilliance far surpassed that of his own son. Madar Munda, with a keen sense of justice, declared Fani Mukuta as his heir, and thus the Nagavanshi lineage was believed to be established. This tale, set around the year 121 CE or 64 CE depending on the version, marks the beginning of the Nagavanshi dynasty in the Chota Nagpur region. So that was the third tale, and you can see the kind of commonalities in all these tales, how the world of snakes is considered sacred in some sense, and there is this element of mysticism, there is this element of intrigue associated with them. But also, these stories are trying to tell us how closely these serpents are associated with the humans, how closely they are linked, and they keep visiting the human world frequently, and yet they are not completely a part of it. There is some kind of distance. They are coming and they are leaving. It's not a consistent relationship. It's not a relationship that's going on constantly. It's about them coming and going back. Something that snakes usually do. They show up and then they disappear when the seasons change. It also tells us about the underlying Indian philosophy, whether it's one kind of belief system or the other, one religion or the other, but this fundamental idea of inclusivity, that there is no other, not just in humans, but even if they are different life forms, you have a relationship with them. Here, nature is part of the world. It's not supposed to be conquered, it's supposed to be worshipped. And consciousness in every form is worshipped. In fact, if you look around, most of these forms of nature, most of these life forms, they are considered even more sacred than human beings. And that's really the idea here, to offer your respect to the nature, to the force of the universe. And yet all this is just the tip of the iceberg that you will find in the book. There are, as I've said before, so many stories that at one point you'll feel like there's just too much information. And I don't think you can remember all these stories, but I'm sure depending on the stories that you have already heard, or the ones that connect with you at an emotional level, or the ones that come from your own region, you might find them more interesting and more relatable. And I'm sure you can keep going back to this book whenever you want to read a particular tale, because there are so many. And it's a kind of a guide about India's relationship with the snakes, especially in the ancient world, and how people saw them, how people worshipped them, what was the relationship between the snakes and the humans in different periods of history. So I'm sure if you get a chance to read the book, you will enjoy all these kind of stories, and you will get to learn a lot about these tales, these myths, these beliefs that started millennia back and are still continued to this day. And you don't have to go far. You can travel to a nearby village, nearby towns, and I'm sure you'll definitely find some form of serpent worship. In a temple, there might be separate temples for a serpent, or in the temples which are devoted to other deities, there also you can sometimes find these deities. So it's quite an interesting subject, and I'm sure if you get a chance to explore this, you'll be fascinated by the idea. So, with that, I'll take your leave. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll come back with another book next time. Thank you.